Welcome to the Millionaire Mindcast, where we broadcast weekly interviews with millionaire minds from across the globe to empower you on your journey of unlocking a rich and fulfilling life. It's time to unleash your millionaire within. Now, here's your host, Matty A.
What's going on, guys? Matty A here. Welcome into today's show. I've got my brother, Mr. A.T. Anthony Tolliver, and we're going to be digging in on how he not only made millions on the court as a professional NBA basketball player, but how he got dubbed as the Entrepreneur of the Year and kind of became this entrepreneurial icon within the professional athletes community, and now has made millions off the court as well. If you're not familiar with Anthony Tolliver, he's an NBA player, he's an entrepreneur, he's a family man. He is a GP at Wealthlete. He is the founder of 356 Real Estate and 356 Ventures. With a focus on real estate and seed funding, his business ventures range across many sectors, including tech, media, retail, direct-to-consumer, software, e-commerce. The dude's got his hands in all kinds of amazing things, and he does it with so much grace and humility and balance. He's also a very highly sought-after speaker and has a mission to spread financial literacy amongst athletes. And we really dug in on his entrepreneurial journey. Got to learn a lot about, one, how he found the levels of discipline and the frameworks he used to create this ability to go and perform at the level that professional athletes are required to perform. He also shared how he has handled the pressure over the years and stayed grounded on and off the court throughout his career. He talked about his investment philosophies, his biggest winners, some of his losers. We talked about his favorite billionaire entrepreneur that you've never heard of. This is probably, in his opinion, the number one wealthiest athlete of all time, over Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson. It was very interesting to hear some of the lessons that he learned from this individual. And we got to dig in on some of his, philosophies of keeping balance and the family and his faith at the foundation of everything he does, and how that's really helped open up doors and create more access to opportunities. Some of his favorite NBA moments. It was a fun conversation with Anthony. I know you're going to get some great value from today's interview. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to check out the show notes at millionairemindcast.com for Anthony's episode, where you'll find a show recap, as well as all the links and resources shared in this interview. And last but not least, if you guys enjoy the interview, you know what it is. Always, we ask, just share it with a friend, a family member on social media, and most importantly, just take 60 seconds to leave a review on iTunes or whatever platform you enjoy listening to this content on. But without any further ado, thanks for tuning in today, guys. And let's dive into today's episode with Anthony Tolliver right after this quick message from today's show sponsors. Well, I'm excited to welcome into the show my brother, A.T. Anthony Tolliver. How we doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
It's good to be talking some business, talking some hoop, talking some life with you. As always, you're somebody that I've grown to just not only respect your discipline and diligence around your business, but as I've learned more about how you are disciplined as a husband, as a father, a man of faith. I mean, you just got back from a pretty cool service trip in Africa, yeah?
Yeah. So me and my wife got a chance to go out to Tanzania, Africa, with an organization that I'm on the board of called World Serve, and we were able to sponsor a well with through my family foundation, and did it in honor of my mother, and it was just an amazing trip. It was a awesome opportunity to go out there and literally in the middle of nowhere, where you would never expect people. There's people, right? There's people. And then not only people, there's thousands of people. And those thousands of people have to walk miles to get clean water. And so just to be a part of a solution, to be able to bring clean, healthy water to them in a very tangible way it was a life-changing event.
I love it, man. It kind of reminds me of, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and he was talking about kind of the four legacies of money. And most people really don't unlock any of these things, but the people who are very intentional about building their wealth and, their impact, it was income freedom, right? Of like not being a slave to trading time for money all the time. And then the income freedom creates that time freedom of how you can spend it, which really most people want to spend their time freedom with the people and the relationships and on the things that they really, really love. So it's the relationship freedom, which then kind of ties into the last one, which deep down inside, I think all humans have this natural, innate desire to have service freedom and making an impact and a difference in serving other people. And you've essentially been able to do all of that. And I think it'd be great to kind of start from the beginning of, when you were trying to unlock that income freedom. When did it all start on this journey of Hoop, where you saw this as a real path and career for you, as your passion kind of unfolded, starting out?
No, I would say sometime around late high school, early college is when I started to understand, okay, there's not a lot of guys who are my size. There's not a lot of guys who have my shooting ability. There's not a lot of guys who have my work ethic, right? So at that point, I think I was like, okay, I think I could, I don't know if I'm going to make the NBA, but I think I could make money, and some significant money. And so for me at that time, my dad, working class guy, used car salesman, worked at Kraft Foods, never had, a bunch of extra money to invest or anything like that. Mom was a teacher, so definitely didn't have any extra money to invest. We had money enough to pay our bills, and for the most part, right? Every once in a while, those would even be in question, but pay our bills, get what we needed. Every once in a while, mainly birthday and Christmas, you get a few things that you want, but that's it, right? Like there was no extra, So, so for me, at an early age, I was like, okay. When I decided to go to Creighton, I actually went there for pre-med because I was like, I want to be a doctor because I want to make a bunch of money if this basketball thing doesn't work out, right?
Yep.
And so that's kind of how my mindset started shifting towards like, hey, I gotta earn a lot of money, right? Is it basketball? Is it being a doctor or whatever? I gotta earn money because I want to be able to change the trajectory of my family's financial life. I didn't know what it was going to be yet, but once basketball became, once I started kind of seeing those things, I was like, okay, forget the pre-med stuff. I got to put that to the side.
We're going all in on Hoop.
All in on Hoop and all in on finance because I had never been taught really about money. Yep. So I was like, I want to learn about money because if I'm going to have it, I'm not losing it. I'm trying to grow it. And so that was the reason why I switched gears. Instead of doing pre-med, I became a finance major and got my degree in finance.
I love it. Oh, see, I didn't know that you got your degree in finance because I was going to say, what was kind of the catalyst for going? Because, a lot of guys will just keep it in the vein of hoops, right? Or professional athletes. Like they see the path to money and they're like, okay, I know I can go make this money. But not many of them go, I need to really sharpen my axe and pencil on my financial skills. Like if they put in the same amount of discipline as they do in hoop and with their bodies and their diets and discipline around that into their finances, I think we both agree, right? There'd be a lot less broke professional athletes. But like, what was it for you catalyst wise that really created that level of discipline for your finances as you had for your fitness and your hoops?
Yeah. So, I mean, first thing I want to address, I actually do believe that, since that documentary that came out named Broke, since that came out and, some of those statistics that have been named in that documentary, I've not done a study, right? But just from being around as many professional athletes as I have been around for the last, 15 years, I actually believe that those numbers have drastically changed for the better.
I love it.
I do not believe that 60% of NBA players are broke after 5 years any longer. There are a lot of programs we put into place that have actually helped, to bridge that gap and everything else. But so I did want to address that. I do feel like that's going in the right direction. I would be really interested to see a new study done
Mm-hmm.
on athletes. I think there's a massive increase in wealth preservation. But to answer your question about financial discipline, I think that for me, I'm just a overall very disciplined person when it comes to self uh, improvement, I guess is so anytime I have an opportunity to get better at something, I have no issues having the discipline that goes along with it.
Mm.
So whether that is physically, so waking up every single morning, I'm retired from basketball, but I still wake up every single morning and I'm in the gym, not necessarily doing basketball every day, but I'm working out and I'm 90 minutes, right? Like I'm going hard, and it's has nothing to do with my profession anymore, but it's just who I am.
The
Right.
habits you've created.
So, right. And so the discipline of hard work, keeping my body in shape, like when I go to Mexico, I want those abs that I had when I was 25, right? I don't plan on losing these abs, right? Like I want to be 75 looking like this, right? Like that's
Yep.
so, because it's not hard because it's self-improvement, right? I know that I'm going to get something out of this workout. Same thing at mental improvement. So reading books and listening to books constantly instead of listening to, trash, right? Instead of watching the news all the time. Like I'm literally pouring into myself on the daily. Almost anytime I have a 15-20 minute window, I am listening to a book that is going to help me in my journey, right? I'm listening to a podcast that's going to, help change my mindset. It is. So when it comes to financial discipline, it just was another one of those pillars where I knew that was something that I didn't have a lot of practice in. My family didn't have a lot of practice in. So I knew if anybody was going to change, it had to be me. And I had to get better at it. So just like pick up the basketball every day to get better, I had to pick up a book or, do whatever it took to get better at the money game. And I'll tell you what, after getting into it, it made me realize how little I really know because man, there's a lot out here.
Yeah, it's a wild world of finance, right? It's like, if you can win the game of money and it's like sitting down to a chessboard for the first time and being like, all right, so what do all these players do? There's a hierarchy here, obviously. There's for sure strategy of what goes into winning this game. Once you play chess 50 times or 100 times, you're like, all right, things are starting to slow down a little bit for me. I see what you're doing over there. I should be doing this little move here, right? You start kind of connecting those dots. But when you first sit down to the board, there's things that you're like, I wish I would have known that a little bit earlier. What are some of the financial lessons that you've learned over your journey being in all kinds of VC and real estate, your professional career, that you wish starting out, you would have known a little bit earlier?
Yeah, well, just to kind of piggyback on, your thought process of it being a chessboard, right?
Yep.
What I've learned is that there's a chessboard kind of in this realm, right? And I would say that is kind of like the normal, financial literacy education and everything else. And then do you watch Stranger Things?
Oh, bro, we're like, my family's obsessed with it.
So the upside down, right?
Yeah.
To me, there is a financial chessboard, but it's in the upside down where if you don't know about it, you don't know about it. But if you know about it, you know about it.
Yep.
And so it's like, and the people who know about it don't want everybody else to know about it, right? And so that is what has blown my mind more than anything. Is like being in the NBA, having certain doors being opened that would have never been opened unless I was in the NBA, then getting access and opportunities in some of these things that you're like, this is like, wait, this is legal? Like, how do you make this? How do you guys make this much money legally? Like, they're like, yeah, this is just what we do. Like, so that's been the most mind blowing thing in the world to me. And I'm glad that I'm exposed to it because I get a chance to take advantage of some of those opportunities. So, but yeah, I just wanted to address that because that is to me one of the most, that is what blew my mind probably more than anything.
Yeah. I when I've gotten into certain circles, and I don't feel like, I'm not capable of finding access. I'm a pretty, I would say, affluent, fortunate in a lot of different ways. And when you think about some of the stuff you learn along the way, and you're like, damn, if I'm in the position I'm in and I'm just learning about this stuff, like 99% of the players on that chessboard, they're set up as pawns, right? And so the beauty of why I love having these conversations, and why I know you and I share a lot of, passion for financial literacy, is you said access, right? I think being a key word, and with technology and the landscape changing and kind of the world of access now, very different than it was maybe 10, 20, 15, 30 years ago. More and more people have access to tools and resources and conversations that can change their financial future, like you talked about. So as you've gotten into your financial journey, and you've really built great disciplines around, areas and buckets of your life that are important and matter to you and are aligned kind of with your vision, what have been some of those key foundational habits, in certain buckets of your life when it comes to wealth building or relationship with your wife or being a dad? Because you juggle, I see, a lot of things, and yet you still find balance. So I always love to know about people's frameworks and habits that give them that rhythm of keeping that balance and still being highly productive.
Yeah. So a couple different things. For me, everything starts with the foundation, right? When you build a house, you build a house on a foundation. If the foundation sucks, everything else eventually is going to come tumbling down. So my foundation is my faith. Every single day I wake up, the first thing I do is I read the Bible, and I try to learn from it and meditate on it, and I pray. And I literally just try to get into a mindset that allows me to, be grateful, have humility, and understand how truly incredibly blessed I am. Because if I start every day with that, as my foundation, there's really nothing that can, I can't really have a bad day, right? Like if I have that foundation as every single day, like I just put myself in a state of great, gratitude and understanding, like, hey, I have a healthy 4 kids, a wonderful wife, awesome family, sisters, brothers, and, everybody's just good. Like everybody's in a good spot. So the rest, icing on the cake, right? Adversities throughout the day, not really that big of a deal. Right. My wife always says, hey, like, man, you have the the ability to like let things go better than anybody I've ever met. And I'm like, it's because I keep everything in perspective.
Yeah.
Most things that we trip about on a daily basis really aren't that important.
No.
It's just that just for some reason you might have woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and then that day that particular situation makes you extra mad, and it just puts you in a bad spot. So when it comes to the balance of the family and finances and business and entrepreneurship and all the above, actually heard, I can't remember who said this, but I actually thought it was really interesting. They said there's no such thing as balance. They're like, if you try to balance, everything fails. They're like, you have to be 100% focused and present in whatever you're doing at that moment. So if you're in business, if I'm doing work, in order to maximize that thing, I have to be 100% focused on my work. That doesn't mean you don't have to work 20 hours a day, right?
Yep.
But if you're focused, you should be able to knock out things way quicker, which gives you more time to focus on your wife, to focus on your kids, to focus. So I'm still a work in progress, right? Like you might see it on Instagram. You might think I'm, got it all figured out sometimes with the balance, but I've actually kind of adopted the mindset of, balancing time maybe, but like when I'm locked in on something, I'm trying to fully engage in that. So if I'm working, I'm locking the door, put my headphones on.
Yep.
Kids, leave me alone. I'm working, right? Yep. And when I'm done working, I'll take these headphones off, turn off this computer, and I am 100% focused on you, right? I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to get better at that. I think that is ultimately the path I want to go down, and have that be my normal. And I really feel like that is something that everybody can kind of learn from and kind of adopt as well, because I feel like it's a mindset that makes a lot of sense.
I agree. It was maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, man, how could I create what I do 365 days a year to be just what I do and it not feel like work? It's just my lifestyle. And I think it's a great conversation to think about. How do you fit in all of the priorities of your overall life, right? Which does include work and hustle every day in some capacity, but also lots of play, lots of love, lots of service, lots of whatever you want to have in that kind of, pie chart of life. And when I started thinking about that, it was like, this is for sure possible to, instead of work 5 and, be lazy for 2, like, how do I just find a way to create this fluid motion of work, play, balance, love, health, all of the things that are important for people. And when you get intentional through creating that awareness, right, you can actually create a plan that you can execute on if you have the discipline to go in and just do the work in those areas you've spent the time getting clear on based on what your priorities are. And so I love that you kind of talk about, the gratitude and humility and how that frames your perspective and foundation every day. And obviously it sounds like one of your superpowers is emotional management. And is that through your faith? Is that through just your consistent preparation and daily practices? Is it a combination of all? Like, how have you been able to keep this perspective in life going through, whether it's high emotional moments on the court, whether it's high emotional moments, in contract negotiations, business investments? Like, how do you manage the highs and lows of fears and doubts and, people talking whatever on you? Like, how do you handle that?
So the answer is all the above, right? Like you said, multiple different things there, whether it be, just the ability to keep perspective. The ability to keep perspective is really based upon, my faith, like I said, my family, my upbringing, my environment, all the things that I was exposed to growing up, like I'm not even saying negative things. I'm talking about positive things. The amount of love that my mom showed and my dad showed, my sister showed me, and besides one of my sisters, she beat me up all the time. But
hey, somebody got to make you hard, right?
That made me tougher, right? Like, so it's like they all participated in building me up. But the perspective that I received from a very young age that has never left my brain, and it's something I'm trying to replicate for my kids, is there's always people with more. There's always people with less. You have to love yours. J. Cole is one of my favorite rap artists, and he has a song called "Love Yours," and it's he's like a prophet. Like, it's like literally, it's like one of those things that everybody should listen to and understand. It's like, man, like, stop comparing your everything to everybody. You'll never be happy if you're always comparing your life, your situation to other people. If you use it for motivation, great. But if you use it for a way to, oh man, I don't have this, so my life isn't this. It's like, well, people pray for what you have every day, right? Like, and I don't care what level you are. I don't care if you're making $30,000 a year. There's somebody praying to wish they made $30,000 a year, right? Yeah. But if you're never exposed to those people or to those situations or to those, whatever, like you'll never truly, in my opinion, you'll never truly have the right perspective, because you'll always think that you'll be happy if you have a little bit more. If you're not happy with what you have now, you'll never be happy with what you'll get later. It's just how life works. It's some of the richest people I've ever met are the most miserable, right?
Yep.
So it's not about having 50 million or 500 million or 5 billion or 50 billion. It doesn't matter. If you're stuck in a rut at $50,000 a year, you'll be stuck in a rut with $500,000 a year. Like, you have to learn to have a perspective of there's always people with more, there's always people with less. appreciate what you have, appreciate the great things in your life, health and everything else. I mean, perfect example. Was it Steve Jobs, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
he passed away, right? Like
Yep.
like one of the richest people on the planet. You can't buy health,
Yeah.
right? You can't buy it. Like you can work out, you can do a lot of different stuff, but man, that's just what it is. Like he had all the money in the world, but he couldn't save himself.
Yeah.
So like money's cool. Money's great. Money's a tool, right? Money's something you can use to help other people, to have great vacations, all this different stuff. But if you don't have that perspective of, you know, staying humble and staying, you know, and being happy where you're at, it just, man, it just makes for a tough life, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does. When you were in the MBA, you know, you entrepreneur of the year, you kind of carved out this identity of not only being a hooper and crushing it on the court, but then you started really amplifying and building this parallel identity of business and getting into opportunities, you know, and leveraging the income that you were making in hoop to go and build more income off the court. What was the first opportunity that kind of kicked that off for you, and how did you step into it?
Uh, entrepreneurship kind of, you know, it's pretty natural for me. And I say that because I don't feel like it's natural for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a lot of people who are truly built to just work for other people.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. Right.
Yep.
Like I say it's totally fine because I love those people.
Right.
Right. Like I will hire a great employee any day of the week because they're hard to find. Right.
Yep.
And so the best employees, I mean, they're great assets and shoot, you can get paid a lot of money, you know, and there's a lot of successful employees. Right. But for me, you know, I started working at Dairy Queen at the age of 15 and was making like $7.50 an hour, worked a couple weeks. And then at the end of 2 weeks, I get like 150, $180. And I'm like, huh, all that work didn't seem like the reward is lining up there. Right. Like, and so I did that. I actually did it for 2 off seasons. So like I worked there for like 2 years, right? 15 to 16-year-old. Well, simultaneously, I was like, all right, let me see if I can start a different business, right? So started a lawn mowing business and really, you know, really fast, I figured out, all right, I can make like $30 an hour or even more sometimes mowing a lawn. It's cash, so I'm not paying any taxes.
Yeah.
Right. And so I go mow 5 lawns. I'm done in 5 hours in a weekend on one day. Right. And I just cleared basically the same amount of money as I did from 2 weeks of work at Dairy Queen. I was like, yeah, this entrepreneur thing is definitely the way to go. Right. Like,
Yep.
I'm going to own my own business, have my own schedule, work when I want to, and make more money than I would if I just go get a job somewhere else. So it started then, right? It started when I was like 15, 16. Then I started a car detailing business, realized same thing. It's like, hey, I gotta network a little bit, you know, make sure people understand that I can do this. I can clean a car. I can mow a lawn. Like that's not hard, right? That's just, it's hard work, but it's not hard. It's not like you got to go to school for 2 years to learn how to mow a lawn or 2 years to learn how to clean a car. I do that for free for my mom, right? Like, so, right. So for me, I was like, I can make money doing this type of stuff. That's easy, right? Bet. So I started there. And so I've just always had that mindset ever since then, since I was 15, 16 years old. And so when I got into the NBA or when I started playing professionally, started making a few dollars, I realized very, very quickly that that money that I was bringing in, I was going to start putting to work immediately. So some guys it takes 3 or 4 years and millions of dollars of them blowing before they realize that's not sustainable. I'm going to have to start investing so that after I'm done, I still have a lot of money and I can live. But I was like, forget that. I'm not blowing a penny, right? Like, so I bought a piece of real estate literally as soon as I could raise get enough capital to buy a rental property. Very first thing I bought before I even bought myself a car or anything, I bought a rental property. Just hey, got one. Over time we'll build it up, but I got one rental property in the game, right? In the game. And so did that shortly thereafter. As far as on the venture side of things, I was able to invest in a company called Active Faith, which is a Christian athletic apparel company. And the thing is, it was like a small amount of money. It wasn't a lot, but it was also like, I didn't know what I was doing. Right? I didn't know how to analyze deals or anything like that, but I just had like the entrepreneurial spirit. I'm like, hey, this could work. We could figure this out. Let's go figure this thing out. And so that got me started in on that journey of just like starting businesses. And that was kind of the beginning, but obviously I've done a whole lot since then, and had a lot of great successful startups that I've helped go from the ground up.
What's been your most successful one and why?
So numbers wise, so far, most successful one has been Big Blanket. So
I love my big blanket, by the way.
Yeah, well, that's why it's successful. So you just answered your own question. Those things have been amazing. We had an idea. We knew it made sense, and we sourced a really unbelievable product. And we, like I said, we didn't know it. Like, we didn't know at the time. We thought it was cool. But we didn't know how everybody else was going to react to it and everything else. But man, yeah, in 2.5 years, that thing did really well for me. I 80x'd my money on the first exit, and I still have ownership in it. So it's, not a bad deal.
Yeah.
For sure. Right. Like it went very, very quick, and and blew up very, very quick. And so, we're still rolling, still selling those big old blankets.
If Boban can fit in one of them blankets, it's a big ass blanket.
Yes. And he can stand up, put his hand all the way up, and he still does not reach to the top of a big blanket. That just tells you how big it is.
They're amazing. If you guys haven't checked them out, we'll include the link in the show notes, because they're awesome. And AT sent me one, and me and my girls, my wife, we all get on the couch, get the big blanket, get the popcorn, watch some Netflix. So that's been a fun one. What's been your worst investment, and why, and what'd you learn from it?
So all of the investments that, well, I was about to say all the bad ones. Really, all of the investments are in their success or not success, most of the time, not every time, most of the time, is a reflection of the people who are running it. Right. So when people talk about, being invested in people, right? I think you even mentioned earlier, like, you invest in people, not so much, the business all the time. Right. And so, business is important, right? It's very important. But the people who are running the business make or break it.
Yep.
Right. Sometimes there's flukes, right? There's, our real estate, me and my real estate partner, we've done a lot of deals, and we've lost money on one project. Right. And so I can't say like, oh, it's a reflection of him that we lost money on that project because he was running it. But it was just like, that one was just like, all the numbers worked out, everything looked good, everything penciled out, and it just didn't work. Right. So that happens. And that happens in business too, in venture and everything else. Like, so sometimes it's not, but the ones I've lost on and lost big on, it's like, I look back, I'm like, ooh, why did I do that? Right. Like, why did I invest in that person? Right. Because they showed their face, right? Like, like they showed their true character and who they really were. Maybe I got tricked at the beginning, maybe, I don't know. But at the same time, I'm like, there's always a time where I'm like, all right, I don't know if I should do this. And then if I end up doing it anyway, and then I'm like, now lose, and I'm like, well, dang it. I had the discernment, right? I had the discernment, but I didn't follow the discernment. And so that's probably the biggest thing I learned and have learned over the past decade plus of investing is that discernment, even if it just looks like it's the next best thing and it's awesome and it's great. I mean, I've had guys have their discernment say no, and then it blows up, right? Like, so it can go both ways, right?
Yep.
Like you can say no to something and it blows up and you say, crap, my discernment sucked there. But I would say most of the time your discernment's probably right. And I would say trust your gut in those moments.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite quotes from a book by Susan Scott. It's called Fierce Conversations, and it's just around leadership and leading people, conversations, good, tough, fierce, all of that. And she often says in the book, don't just trust your gut, obey your gut. Because I've been through many of those scenarios where you're like, you don't know if I should do this, right? There's that hesitation. And if you do move forward, most of the time when it doesn't work out, your gut was 100% right, and there's that level of intuition that, it's kind of hard to measure, but it oftentimes is spot on, right? So it's always interesting when you say that when it comes to, investing in deals. Who have been some of the leaders in your world that have inspired you, that you love to follow, that you love learning from, that you like being in conversation with?
So from a like outside looking in standpoint, because I've had a couple conversations with him, and he's in a completely different industry than what I am in now, but he's always been someone I've looked up to majorly, is Junior Bridgman. I don't know if you know who that is.
No, who is that?
Most people don't. And that's exactly why he is my hero, right?
He wants it to be that way.
Right. So he is, I think, behind Michael Jordan and maybe Magic Johnson. Maybe. He might be ahead of Magic Johnson. But I think he is the highest earning athlete potentially ever behind Michael Jordan. And,
what's his name again?
Junior Bridgman. So he played in the NBA. I believe he was a one-time All-Star, maybe a two-time All-Star, like, a good player, right?
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
But he played back in like the maybe late 70s, early 80s, type time frame. I think he might have played 9 or 10 years, like good, solid career. But back then they didn't make a lot of money, right? Yeah. And he, he did stuff on the side. So he started a Wendy's. He invested in a Wendy's while he was playing, right? First Wendy's did terrible, right? Like it just did not go well. But he learned a lot, and he was actually in the business. Like he was, he's playing in the NBA, but he was like all in the numbers, following it, like really, really learning. Because he really liked it. Anyways, he finishes his career, and he had, I'll never forget this number either. He had $900,000 saved up, right? And he took every penny and invested it into either 2 or 3 additional Wendy's franchises in the area he was in. And he went all in. He went all in on it, right? I'm going to run these Wendy's. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to make it happen, right? Went all in. And then Wendy's just started basically saying, hey, you're doing such a great job with these. Here's a couple more. You can get a deal. So he just started building this conglomerate. And over, 20 years or so, he built up, I want to say 500 restaurants.
Oof.
So 500 Wendy's, Cheddar's, Buffalo Wild Wings, like multiple different franchises, not just Wendy's, but mainly Wendy's. I think it's 200 or 300 Wendy's, but then a couple hundred other restaurants. And so he built up, $200, $300, $400 million net worth from the restaurant business. Well, then Coca-Cola approaches him because all his restaurants had Coca-Cola products, and he was such a good operator. Coca-Cola comes to him and offers him an opportunity to be, I think, one of 2 individuals in the history of Coca-Cola to run and operate a distribution center. So, and I don't know what that looks like from an ownership standpoint, because I know since then his net worth has exploded. So I'm assuming
it's probably pretty nice.
Right. I'm assuming there's some ownership attached to his new role with Coca-Cola.
Yep.
And so now I'm, to my knowledge, he is, if he's not there yet, he's close to being a billionaire. Right. And he might have made a couple $1 million in the NBA, maybe. Right. So that's why he's someone I've always looked up to, because I'm not discounting Michael Jordan. I'm not discounting Magic Johnson, Shaq. I'm not discounting any of these guys who are 100 millionaires and close to billionaires, whatever.
Yep.
But you and I both know it's a lot easier to be a billionaire if you start out with a couple 100 million.
Yep.
If you start out with 50 million. It's a lot easier to get to the B if you start with 50 M's or 500 M's, right?
Yep.
So not discounting any of those guys, but Junior to me is the most successful athlete off the court in the history of sports.
I love that, because you never hear his name, and I
don't want anybody to know my name. I want to follow his tracks. I want to do exactly what he's done. I want to be, a massively successful businessman. And then most people not like, who's Anthony Tolliver? He played in the NBA. Oh, that's cool. Whatever. Like, oh, he's a billionaire. Like holy crap. Like, exactly. So that's why he's always been someone I looked up to, because it's, I don't need the flash. I don't care about fame. I don't care about any newspaper articles or anything. I just want to be successful, help as many people as I can, and bring as many people up as I can as I'm building up.
I think usually it's the people with those type of intentions behind their motivation and inspiration to go and generate more wealth and money that end up not only generating that wealth and money, but having that great impact and service in ways that the people who just want the money for the flash, for the recognition, for all the wrong reasons, that often struggle to get it, because there's no true, genuine purpose behind it outside of just serving yourself. Right. And so I was going to ask you a little bit about, what is the vision and the goal and the legacy as you, macro, micro, short-term, long-term look like for AT?
So I'll start internally. So for myself, I mean, really, it sounds kind of weird. I don't think there's not I've already achieved more than I ever imagined growing up. Right. So as far as even financially, like where we are financially today compared to where I would have ever thought I could have gotten to, I've already surpassed that. So individually, I'm like, I'm going to continue to grow and build. Absolutely. But individually, like I've kind of already achieved a lot of the goals that I had set out for as a kid, going out to my family. So my goal with my family is to put every single one of my family members that have the ability to, bring value, right? Like, because once again, some people are just like, hey, I want to be an employee. I don't want to go out and learn a new skill. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I'm trying to, have my job at this place, pay my bills, and live my life. I have no problem with that. I'm gonna support you all day long. Come over for a barbecue whenever we have family barbecue. Like, you're not banished from my family because of that. But any of my family members that want more, right? Any of them that want to grow and expand, and like my brother-in-law, he's like, I want to do real estate. He's got his license. So I was like, I'll invest. Let's do this. Like, I will help you build, right? I'll use my capital to help you build your own capital. So when we go on vacations in the future, I don't have to pay for everything. You can pay for your own.
All right.
That's kind of my vision and goal for my family, is to, like, everybody who wants it, they'll set them up in a position to go get it.
I love it.
Same thing. And then I just kind of build that out with my friends as well. And my, friends and acquaintances, it's the same thing, and that's pretty much where I've built a lot of my wealth. So Big Blanket, I did that with my best friend. My best friend, he was playing overseas.
Is that Dane?
Yeah, Dane. Yeah. So, he was playing overseas. He, got a chance to come back. He's like, we're trying to figure out something to do together. This got presented to me through Dane. Actually, it was a friend of his. And I told them, I said, hey, listen, I'll do this, but he wants to be a part of this company, not only getting paid, but he wants ownership, right? So that's how I plan on kind of moving forward, period. Is like anytime I can set up my family, anytime I can set up my friends and my people to advance, that's what I'm going to do. Those are the things I'm going to always gravitate towards, are the things that I can help my people grow and advance. So, and then lastly, kind of, you say, just keep building out, right?
Yep.
So I have a big goal, a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And that is to help at least 100 people in my lifetime become millionaires. Not because $1 million is going to be the number that gives everybody financial freedom, right?
Yeah.
In today's world, $1 million is a lot, but it's really not a lot, right?
Yeah, I know.
But it's just a tangible goal. It's a tangible number that I can track, something I can, actually do to then that gives me hey, I'm helping people get on track, right? I'm helping people go down the path of getting to financial freedom if I can get them, help them make $1 million. So that's ultimately, my goal. That doesn't have to be just family or friends, right? Like that can be anybody outside of my circle as well. If I'm, directly involved, if I'm a LP in a big syndication, I'm not counting that, right?
Yeah.
If I'm the GP of a syndication, I am counting that. So,
and what are you, what are you looking at in terms of opportunities right now that you think are interesting? You're obviously in real estate, the market's shifting right now. I just want to get your, perspective on what, let's just say as we record this, I think today GDP came out at negative 0.9%. So 2 quarters of negative GDP. We're in a technical recession. The Fed's raising interest rates again. What's your overall perspective on how you're navigating what feels like one day further away from the peak, one day closer to the trough, and what opportunities we know come in times of recession? What's your overall outlook on the market landscape that we're heading into, and how are you planning on capitalize on it, and what should other people be paying attention to?
Yeah. So some things are luck, right? Some things you can't plan. Some things you don't like. I can't take credit for that kind of the timing of some of the things I've done. But one thing I did do, started to get into about a year ago, was oil and gas. And one of the things that I feel like over the next, couple years, probably it's going to have a nice little run here, is going to be like oil prices are just outrageous right now, right? And so I have done a little bit in oil and gas, which have been very lucrative, and I think will continue to be lucrative. And just because of the nature of where we are and everything else, there's a lot of different factors that go into that, but we won't go too deep into that. So I think that's one area that that I've leaned into a little bit more, just because of where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Truck parking. So me and a couple of my partners, we have a couple of truck parking lots, one in Jacksonville, one in Kansas City, Missouri, that are absolutely crushing it. And we did a couple years of research before even pulling the trigger on these. And we found a very large discrepancy in the amount of spots that are needed and in the spots that were available along the major highways across the United States. And so we identified a lot of different markets that are lacking through our research for 2 years. And so now it's like, okay. And then we wanted to prove out our model, which we have, right? And with these first two projects. And now we're, looking to scale that business because of, like I said, it's low maintenance, high revenue, kind of hard to beat that combination. So truck parking, because guess what? In a recession, what keeps going? Trucks.
Logistics.
Right? Like,
yep.
It doesn't matter what that is about as recession proof as you're going to get. Logistically speaking, we can't have an economy without trucks. right? We can't get stuff from point A to point B without trucks. So guess what? Those things have to park somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another place where, leaning pretty heavily into on the real estate side. That's real estate. But then, additionally on the real estate side, just the nature of the market, there's not a lot of buying happening, but
Yep.
that
Yeah.
means more.
Things
That
have
means
cooled
more.
down.
That means more renting, though, right?
Yep.
So, right now, we have several projects that we've done in the past that we were maybe thinking about selling at some point, but not anymore
Yeah.
because
Gonna hang on to them.
the next couple of years we feel like rents are going to continue to grow and actually catch up.
Yep.
I feel like rents are a little bit suppressed from where they probably could be and should be, just like prices of homes were suppressed for such a long time. I think that the next wave of growth is going to be in the rental market, and so those rent prices, just like you saw some of these house prices go nuts, I feel like rent's going to do something similar there. So anybody who has units to rent, I think are going to be in a really good spot over the next 2 to 3 years. And yeah, so that's kind of where we've been leaning into, and continuing to do some other exploration, right? Like it's even in a down market, I'm one to continue to look at everything because there's always opportunities in everything if you can get it for the right price, right?
Yep.
So
I know everybody says, are you buying? I say, of course, I'm always buying as long as the numbers make sense, right? Like,
yep.
I know a lot of in GoBundance in our champions group last event we did, a lot of people are hitting pause right now, or they're just underwriting 20-30% lower today than yesterday. But in times of turbulence, there's obviously problems that need to be solved, and opportunities present themselves for the people that are willing to solve them. So I think it's going to be an interesting and exciting, like you said, there's always a bull market somewhere. You just got to find out where that is and, lean in. But going back to, Junior, right? Like he found what his tree trunk was and he chopped wood at that over and over and over and over again. And so how do you discern on going out too wide and, very little deep versus like being a generalist versus a specialist? What's your advice to people that are starting out or scaling on that wealth journey when it comes to that type of mindset and some of the disciplines that might serve them and or to be aware of that could hurt them?
Yeah, so for me, I've actually kind of had that concern for myself at certain points where I'm like, man, am I doing too much?
Yep.
And I was like, man, I need to find what I need to like. What's my vertical? What's the thing that I'm just like absolutely crushing? And I talked. It's actually we were in Miami. I was talking with Adam West, I believe I was talking to, and Daniel Del Rey and a couple other guys. And Adam's like, "What are you talking about? Like, you've played basketball for 32 years, right? That was your vertical, right? Like you have every right now to go horizontal and start,
That's real. Yeah.
trying other stuff out." And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, so it was like, to me, it was like, it was almost freeing because it's kind of a weird thing. I have such, we're kind of our own worst critics, right?
Sure.
Our own biggest critics. Like we're always giving ourselves the hardest time whenever we should be giving ourselves a lot more grace than we do. And, it just, after playing basketball for so long, and now that I'm not playing basketball any longer, it was almost like I felt like I needed to, man, I gotta go be the best real estate developer. I gotta go find another vertical. And I'm like, really kind of where I'm at, like I don't have to do anything vertically, right? I don't have to go do a 9 to 5. I can work 9 to 5, but I can work 9 to 5 on 5, 6, 7 different things simultaneously, right? And so, from a standpoint of other people though, I can't, my journey is not your journey, right? Like I'm 37 years old. I'm in a great financial position. And, the next 35, 37 years of my life could end up looking crazy incredible because of the things I've been able to do the past 37 years to to be able to build upon. Right.
Yep.
But, most people don't become millionaires and super successful in their 20s and 30s, and sometimes not even in their 40s. Right. Sometimes it just takes a while to get there through a whole lot of time and discipline and everything else. And so, I can't say, hey, go out and try 5-10 different things like I do, because I'm just in a much different position than most people are.
Yep.
So I would say, yes, 1000% find that foundation, right? To find that financial foundation and then build from there, right? Like whatever that is, if you have a job and it's making enough money to be able to save and to invest and to grow, great. If you have a job and you don't have the ability to do all that, you got to have a side hustle.
Yep.
Right? Got to find a side hustle. You got to find something that's going to be able to build your asset class, right? To be able to buy assets, to be able to buy things that can help you grow. Because just paying bills week by week, month by month, and not saving, not investing, not doing the things to help grow, you will be in a rat race your entire life.
Yep.
Forever.
I always just tell people just ask yourself the question is, what does it take to earn the right to do X, right? Like, what does it take to earn the right to invest $200 of my paycheck every month? Or what does it take to earn the right to go and invest and buy a property? What does it take to earn the right to hire your first assistant, right? Is it a certain amount of reserves? Is it a certain amount of, cash coming in? Once I get my income to here, then I can start doing that. I think getting clarity in some of those questions gives you then permission, right? Like for you, it was like, well, what does it take to earn the right not to have to focus on one thing? Oh shit, I've been focusing on one thing for 32 years. Like I earned the right with that level of discipline, building up my cash reserves, having enough, investments and a moat around my wealth and my foundation and my family to go and do some of these things, right? And so I think asking those questions are really powerful because then it just gives people clarity on what the answer is. And then you can work backwards on a plan to actually just take the steps, right? Follow the breadcrumbs of your path.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that's the key. That is absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with you.
All right. So we wrapping up. I want to get some AT favorites. Favorite book that you've read this year?
That's a tough one. So I'm big on like business books and everything else, but every once in a while I'll do things for entertainment.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed the Will. So the Will Smith book. Yeah. So
he came out with that earlier this year, right?
Yeah, I believe so. It was before the slap. It was before the slap. He came out with it before the slap, and it was one of the most entertaining books I'd ever listened to, read, been a part. Like it was.
Did he self-narrate?
Incredible. He did.
He did. Okay. See, I always love when the author narrates their own book.
Yeah, yeah. And then as far as the books, business books or growth books or whatever, just recently. And I also read The Gap in the Gain. I thought that was really good as well. So,
yep, that's a good one. Favorite podcast you like listening to when you're trying to improve the mind?
My go-to is just Bigger Pockets, real estate podcasts. Just from a standpoint, because I'm actually more of an audible book person because I like to listen to an audible book a couple times and really just try to, because what I find is when I read a physical book, I actually ingest it better or like it and retain more if I read a physical book, and I'm able to highlight some stuff and whatever. But if it's audible, sometimes I'm doing that whenever I'm doing other things, and so I miss stuff. So I actually have lately I've been actually, as soon as I finish the book, I'll listen to it again immediately, right? So I'm listening to things twice. And so yeah, I mean, but as far as podcasts go, that's probably, one of the ones I listen to more than anything else. And, I'll just kind of dibble and dabble in other podcasts as well. I've listened to yours before and, listened to Jamie Gruber's, listened to his podcast in the past, and just a few other guys, just, I'll just pop it on here and there.
Yep, I feel it. Favorite NBA moment?
Favorite NBA moment? I would say either blocking Giannis, blocking one of his dunks.
I remember you played that on your IG a minute ago. I was like, okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty high up there. It's one of the scariest
Going up to Greek Freak.
one of the scariest NBA moments, but also one of the best NBA moments. And then having my career high in the game that allowed Don Nelson to become the winningest head coach of all time. So that game, I had my career high.
How many did you drop that game?
34. So it was an amazing night, and had a lot of fun.
I love it, brother. Well, I know a lot of people want to follow you on Instagram. They want to know more about Big Blanket or, all the cool stuff that you got going on between the Tolliver Family Foundation, your investments, your book. Where's the best place for them to follow what you got going on?
Yeah, Instagram is atolliver44, and my website is anthonytolliver.me, and pretty much my whole life is on there. As far as the businesses I'm involved in, there's ways to contact me there. Obviously, if you want to contact me directly, and I have a newsletter that you can subscribe to and kind of follow my journey even more. And foundation is on there as well, which we're doing some really, really awesome things. We just launched it this year, but essentially what we're doing is we've been doing so much philanthropy and giving for the past 15 years. We've just never done it under an entity.
Yeah.
Right. We've never done it under a nonprofit, and we've never really, tapped into the power of the collective. Right. Like, yep. So, the ability to, fund, like when we funded wells over in Africa, stuff like that, honestly, we looked at it like we have the ability to potentially, raise money and not just do one or two. We could do 3, 4, 5 if we just put a little more effort into it. Maybe have a golf tournament. Maybe have this or that to have the ability to even have more of an impact. So we're just looking for partners and people to join us on this journey to do some pretty amazing stuff.
I love it. Well, we'll be sure to link up all that in the show notes, guys. MillionaireMindcast.com on AT's episode. Brother, I just want to say thank you, man. I appreciate you, getting to know you, getting to do business with you, getting to just learn from you, getting to see how you live and what I appreciate about you is not only are you a messenger and a steward of, great practices and values and disciplines, but you are truly somebody who actually lives it, at the highest level. And that authenticity, I think, is extremely powerful and a great superpower that you have. So I just want to thank you for coming on the show today and, blessing the Millionaire Mindcast family with some AT wisdom.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you for having me. 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 You for having me.